Good morning and welcome to this week's recruitment discussion with Jump. Hopefully today at 12:30, Rachel will announce that the autumn statement will not only set the UK on fire on a road to discovery, but will ignite the recruitment market. And I'm often heard saying that hope is not a strategy, but in this case, I am hoping. That is my strategy for 12 o'clock, 12:30 today is I am hoping Rachel will do something that no one is expecting, but there you go. Last week, we talked a lot about how top recruitment leaders can motivate high performance in their teams beyond the financial incentive. During that webinar, we discussed the challenges faced in the recruitment during 2025 and focused on how difficult it has been to motivate staff. This week, we're going to link that to now financial performance and how to develop consistent performance. So this week, the strategic incentive, sort of engineering high performance through smart compensation design. So Dave, let's kick this off. I know we're either going to be in sync on this one or we're going to be massively different because we come from different sort of recruitment worlds, etc. And recruitment there seems to be no size fits all or one size fits all sort of commission plan, etc. So let's see where we get to. Right, first question then. Can you explain how you successfully linked financial incentives to intrinsic motivators we know drive sustainable performance?
And I think, Howard, in your question is the word success. And we've all been involved in so many different recruitment companies. We've bought companies and merged them together. And I'm not sure there is one answer that guarantees success because we're talking about people, we're talking about motivation. So, in summary, the best way, and it has worked in some cases and not in others because it doesn't always work what we put into place. But the best way that I found is to write down what is the company's motivation? What is the company, either the owners of the company or if it's a PLC, what have we strategically said, this is what we're going to do? What are the levers? Is it more new business? Is it more work from existing accounts? Is it hiring more people? What are the key things, key four or five things that we want to achieve as a business? And then on the other side, you look at the three or four key roles and write down what are the things that those people, the consultants, the managers, the team leaders, the directors, what is it that they need to do to link to those? And that's where I found we've had most success because you can have a discussion on a one-to-one basis, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, with your team to say, look, this is what we're trying to achieve as a company. This is your role in it. And these are the things that we need you to do. And also you end up having conversations about skills. Well, I'm not skilled to do that. Okay, so now we've got a training need. But without linking what the company does to what the individual has to do to achieve that, it becomes very difficult. And if the individual's motivations are completely different from the company's motivations, for example, I just want to run major accounts and develop major accounts. I don't want to do new business. And the company's saying, but you need to do new business. You end up having a discussion, an argument, whatever you want to call it, without saying, well, unless you train me to do new business, I can't do it. And the things don't align and the performance isn't there in the way that you want it to be. And either there's a falling out or someone leaves or whatever. So you've just got to try to look at it. Am I getting my individuals motivated to do what the company needs to do?
I think we're going to come through that thread all the way through this conversation. And I think motivation only lasts a very short period of time. And when you're sort of motivating just purely financial, as soon as you start to lose that financial thing, you're in problems. So if you link your financial incentives to your intrinsic motivators, then in recruitment you should find that obviously money matters, but sustainable performance comes from sort of connecting those financial rewards to the deeper motivators like growth, autonomy, purpose, recognition that most people have. And we discussed a lot of that last week. And I think I sort of went away from last week's and I put down four things that I'd be looking at when I start to link my financial incentives to my intrinsic motivators. I'll be looking at rewarding development, not just billings. So exactly what you're talking about, link incentives to skills growth or market mastery, so consultants feel they're being paid for becoming better recruiters not just hitting numbers.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
you were talking about, align us bonusship, but I think aligning bonus with ownership to tie those rewards
Well,
to outcomes, and the consultants fully own those rewards. So managing their niche, building leading accounts or building their big accounts, developing new business, reviving lapsed clients, building high net worth candidate pools, giving them the autonomy that drives long-term effect. I'd change these quarterly probably to ensure that the incentive doesn't become stale, but we keep then recycling different incentives that grow that thing. And then I think I'd incentivize purposeful and high quality work. So reward behaviors that improve candidate client experience, long-term placements, helping consultants feel that they genuinely matter in the marketplace. And I think sometimes we just feel that they're money-making machines, and sometimes they are, but we need other things to drive that. So I think getting things like testimonials, and I think getting unsolicited testimonials sort of shows the quality that you've got, but going out and getting testimonials is great. Getting feedback from your clients, from your candidates, and having a scoring system
yeah.
that would drive
Yeah.
better quality and paying people based on that quality. It would mean that your people care about what they're doing. And the final thing I thought was amplifying recognition with financial reward, and that sort of I'd pair bonus with visible recognition. So these would be based on behaviors displayed in the office. This would incorporate your mission statement, your values, as you were talking about, and that consultants would assess their own alignment to these. So which strengths motivates beyond commission, but is creating high performance teams that create value and purpose. So I think that's the things I start to think about. And when I start to think about the commission pot, we normally put 100% of the commission pot all into financial performance. Why not split that commission pot? And I'm just, spitballing here. Let's say 60% goes on financial performance, and the final 40%, you could split that between sales incentives to produce productivity. You could put that into other type of performances to hit certain things. But what we're trying to do then is breed a culture. So we're not just paying on final performance, we're actually paying the people on how they personally perform as well. And I think that might be a revolution to quite a lot of businesses, but I think that's the way that you start to grow and keep people.
Yeah.
One of those things that we're going to come across all the time on this is, what specific KPIs do you attach to bonuses to go beyond billings, and how do you prevent then the consultant gaming the system?
And I think this links into your answer to the last question, Howard. The number of times I've seen a bonus plan for a manager or a consultant that actually was written 4 or 5 years ago. This is the way we do things here. Here's what you get. The salaries will change, but the bonus plan is effectively the same. And yet, the world of recruitment, the expectation of our customers, the way that they buy, the way that they recognize value, isn't picked up in any way in bonus plans where we're rewarding our staff. And I think we should, as leaders in recruitment businesses, have the freedom and the desire to change bonus plans as it becomes appropriate. So, one of the biggest reward systems that I think any leader in a recruitment company can have is staff retention. Recruitment in general has very poor staff retention. We look at sometimes our clients and they may be on 20%. Yeah. But in recruitment, it's been as high as 40% in certain sectors, in certain areas. We're not as good as we should be at keeping our own staff. So if you're a leader, a manager, a director, in any way, a big percentage of your bonus should be in staff retention and staff development. And that's a KPI that isn't, we've made this much profit or this is an EBITDA number. It has to be on keeping your people, because if you keep your people, you'll make more money if they're performing. And if they're not performing, then you're having a separate conversation about performance management, where they will either succeed and stay and do well, or unfortunately they won't be able to do very well, but they will leave in a managed way. So staff retention, definitely. Customer satisfaction. We don't really do customer surveys that much. Some companies do, and we've spoken in the past about net promoter scores and things like that. That seems to have died. I don't know whether that's true. Whether your clients are using it, but net promoter scores, what clients say, not that many recruitment companies seem to use them. But that's another good way of rewarding an individual at the desk or a team leader or a manager. What do your customers say? And one KPI that I always used to use from the contract world, not permanent world, from the contract world, I used to pay higher commission on contractors that were working for us that got reused, resold, replaced at another client site. So I remember at one time in the days at Spring where we had 4,000 odd contractors, less than 2% of them were placed elsewhere. Yeah, and the idea was to try to get to 5%.
And if you think about that 5%, that'd
5%,
be
5%
huge.
isn't still high, but it was, it was a considerably more than the 2% that we had. So that was another KPI that we used to use. Make sure that when your contractor's finishing for client A, you offer that contractor to client B, C, D, E, whatever, and you try to find him or her another job.
So I think when you're driving at managers, you're absolutely right. And I think also driving at salespeople. And I think if we combine my last answer, your answer, and then put them into two defined brackets, and we put them into managers, which you talk mainly there, and I'm going to put them into billing people themselves. So I think KPI that creates consistent performance, the number of new terms they've signed, number of new points of contacts they've found in existing buyers, number of lapsed clients they've revived, number of client meetings they've had, what their placement ratios. And I think that's the one thing that we tend not to look at is their placement ratios. And if we can start to drive those numbers up, then that starts to create consistent performance. The second bracket, though, is how the person delivers their performance against the core company values, so against our mission statement. And again, what you were saying there, what do the clients and candidates say about performance? What do they do as a manager or your team leader say about the person and how aligned to the business they are? Now, we've got to start to think that attrition in recruitment is awful. You're
Yeah.
saying it's mid 40s, it's 43% according to Perkbox, overall. But there are other stats in year one saying it ranges from anywhere from 60 to 73%, which is just huge. So if you think about the standard comms plan, 100% purely based on financial performance, the drivers are there to encouraging and purely hit that financial target. But once it's deemed unachievable, how many people then switch off? Once it's deemed even worse, easy to hit, people start to take the foot off the gas. So you think about some of your big billers that may be only billing in one or two accounts, they take their foot off the gas because they know they're going to hit the top end of the commission pay, whatever. So the behaviors that create consistent performance are usually not part of the actual end sale, the figure that you look at the end, the money figure. They're all the things that link to it. And we tend not to measure. We tend to measure usually jobs on, CV sent, interviews, placements, and then reward purely on that final bit. But I think if we broke the commission pot down into sectors or sections, and those sections are linked to what makes a placement, so the number of calls you're making and things, etc., now we might drive behaviors that create consistent billing rather than the yo-yo effect, which most recruiters see. And we do see lots of yo-yo effect because we're only focused on that pound note at the end of the column rather than all the things that lead to that pound note. And if we put commission into those, would that then start to grow the pound note at the end of the column? And I think that's the bit that we've got to start to think about rather than just how do we incentivize our big billers? What do we do to incentivize our big billers? Because really, the lion's share comes from the 60% in the middle. So let's look at that. How do you design a tiered incentive program that motivates your top 20%, your middle 60%, and your bottom 20% simultaneously?
For me, you must start with your middle 60% because they are the core foundation of the business. The incentives that you put in for those people have to be clearly attainable and are able to be reached with sort of moderate effort. Because as a business, you want 60% of your people hitting 100, 110% of the target, 120, whatever. Because from the core point of view, you know that you are going to run a profitable business if you've got 20 consultants and 10, 12, 14 of them are on target or above target. So you start with that middle group. They need to see that improvement is possible, that improvement can be rewarded. Because if you lose the engagement of those 60%, the entire system collapses. If your retention rate with those 60% is 60, 70% and they're leaving, the entire system collapses. You need that 60% to be performing and hitting the target. Your top 20%, I believe it's easier to motivate the top 20% than it is anybody else because they're the elite performers. You look at the Ronaldos of this world, it's easier to get Ronaldo to play even better because he's elite. He's the top at what he does. So you take your top 20% and you set them really challenging targets, possibly that are different targets to the ones at 60%. We know you're good. You've proved to us you're good. We want you to go and do this. We want you to, this is where the business is going. We see your role in the business. We want you to really go for it. And you're going to get big rewards for doing that. And I think you incentivize and push and cajole and coach and manage the 20% differently than the 60%. And for the 20% at the bottom hand, I just think that requires a really honest assessment. Do they have the ability to be better? Do your managers have the ability to coax and coach better performance from those 20%? And if they don't, then you can't keep flogging a dead horse. Either your managers make them better or they have the ability to make themselves better. And if they don't, then those 20% they shouldn't be saying.
It's interesting. I think throughout my career, especially in the big players in the marketplace, we've always tried to design a incentive program that encapsulates all 100% of our people.
Yeah.
And we try to put this one size fits all program together. And actually, I've come to the conclusion that doesn't work because at some way you're penalizing quite a lot of the people. So I think what you're right in what you're saying, that top 20%, let's put stretch rewards in there. High performance needs to challenge. And I think we've got to challenge our high performance because I think a lot of them sit in their little comfort blanket. And maybe some of them are farming 2 or 3 accounts. Some are actually smashing it out of the park and doing the right things, etc. So I'd set ambitious accelerators and exclusive rewards, high commission tiers, leadership opportunities, etc., that keeps them pushing without capping their potential. And I want to see these people grow, and I want to keep them. And I think what you're saying about attrition is absolutely right. We want to keep those top 20% and we want to keep growing them. So we need to stop them harvesting that 1 or 2 accounts by challenging them to perform what made them good in the first place over and over again. We can't let them become too powerful, or we can't let them to become too complacent. So we've got to keep challenging them from there. You're right, that middle 60%, that is where momentum is gathered in any business because it's the biggest share of the business. And I think we need to have rewards in there. So it's an interesting one. I think groups of recruiters, you could simply move by, if you move that group of 60% and dialed it up by 10%, you perceive 10% more, what an impact on most businesses that would have. So you need to drive that consistent revenue. So I'd focus on incremental wins, small little step up milestones, bonuses, recognition for skill development, and it creates momentum and shows them what actually good looks like. Yeah. And then you can start to then push them towards that top tier where more benefit is, a bigger commission structure is there waiting for them. So you drive them to get there all the time. And that way you create a handful of big billers that can step up and create a handful of really, well, not a handful, a real high number of really good performers who are consistently performing, not yo-yoing up and down. And I think that's what we see, a lot of people yo-yo up and down. And that 20%, and I'm going to look at 20% in 2 places. You've got your newcomers and you've got those underperforming consultants. So I tie the incentive together there based on behaviors and not billings. So how do you improve your ratios? Better conversion rates, learning milestones about what they're developing, exactly what you were talking about there, and then building confidence and capability so they can move into that middle group. So in short, I think, having tiered rewards based on those three areas, stretching the top, creating momentum in the middle, and creating capability and capacity at the bottom would give you a far better. But for a lot of people, that's too complex. It's too hard. It's too hard to manage, etc. Too hard to put into their system. But actually,